Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape, a crossover event presented to you in partnership by SB Nation's Blog of the Boys, Bleeding Green Nation, Hogs Haven, and Big Blue View, SB Nation's home for all NFC East content. My name is RJ Ochoa from Blog of the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. You can listen to this on any of those four podcast networks or watch it on the Bleeding Green Nation or Blog of the Boys YouTube channels. Brandon, a very happy Thursday for us, but Tuesday to the listeners. How are you doing?
RJ, I am incredibly busy. You would never believe.
I can hear it in your voice. I can hear it.
You know, one of those days where it's just like, I can't even get a free second. Well, yeah, it's one of those days. Here we are. Not complaining. I'm just saying it's annoying because I'm trying to write about this stupid Eagles logo rebrand, and I have not had a free second to do that yet. So I'll be doing that right after we record this podcast.
So we have some important things to get into that are not necessarily related to our subject matter. A few housekeeping notes. We're going to be talking about the most overrated players in the NFC East. We did underrated last week. Got some comments about it. Hey, whatever. I was traveling. BLG's traveling, which is why I wasn't able to respond to everything, and I don't think you will necessarily be able to, Brandon. I don't want to speak for you, but because of all the traveling, we are time traveling a little bit more than usual. We normally record on Tuesdays for our Wednesday drop. We are now officially in the deadest point of the off season. About a month and a half of chill time until training camp. So we're recording this, Brandon, on Thursday, June 16th. So if Terry McLaurin is traded between now and I guess our next episode, we won't have anything up available necessarily, but we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. So this will be dropping on Wednesday, the 22nd, just so all of you are aware. Brandon will be, toes in the water in San Diego on Wednesday, you think?
Possibly, hopefully.
Okay. Do you call them swimming shorts or swimming trunks? Or like a bathing suit? Like, what do you call it? Bathing suit. I've always thought that's a weird way to refer to it. Like, you don't bathe in it. Like,
it's really weird.
Yeah. It is what it is. Okay, so before we get to the most overrated players in the division, like I said, we have some things to get to. First of all, if you leave a rating on any one of our podcast networks, we will read it. Please subscribe to your preferred podcast provider. Leave a rating, write a review. 5-star ratings. You can write whatever you want, though. Brandon, we do have a new review over on the BTB side of things. It comes to us from KTJ8546, and the title is Hate to Love It. Here we go. This person's name is Kevin, by the way. Kevin says, I hate how much I agree and appreciate RJ's, periods, baby, he did put the periods between the R and the J, takes. His measured takes on the Eagles, Cowboys, and the two other teams in the division are refreshing, but generally speaking, make me believe even more in the Eagles and less in the Cowboys. Keep up the good work, and during the offseason, we need more BLG, with periods, by the way. Talk on food and jersey numbers. Keep it up and fly, Eagles, fly. So give us a food take, just, because we need one, apparently.
So I was talking to my friend Megan Josh on Wednesday, and we were talking about what is a food? What's something you just don't get in life? And food, it could be food applicable to
don't get you don't understand. Is that what you mean?
You just don't get it. So I mean, it kind of fits the theme, the most overrated things, if you will. It's just
everyone likes this thing, but you don't get it. Okay, I have one, but go first.
It's not even that you hate it. It's just that you don't get the fervor for it. It's it could be fine, whatever. Yeah. I have no opinion on it. Take it or leave it. So I did music. I did not go food. So this isn't going to answer the question, but it's Bruce Springsteen for me, which is
the boss.
Yeah,
no coincidence that Jason Garrett and many Cowboys would go see him in concert.
Jason Garrett, a former Princeton alumnus, that makes sense. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand the appeal, the fervor.
I don't understand what the E is for in the E Street Band. Do you know what it is? I have no idea.
It's spelled with an E.
What, as opposed to
there's some E's in Springsteen. I don't know. It's the best I've got, baby.
I always thought it was cool. The song, The Heart of Rock and Roll. You know what I mean? It's cool. But
I barely know any Bruce Springsteen songs. And it's weird too, because apparently it's it gets brought up as a sports writer trope. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I feel like it gets brought up a lot. All sports writers, or a lot of them, love Bruce Springsteen. Right. Maybe not so much of our generation, but the older generation. But again, I don't get it. I don't think he sucks. I just don't understand it.
Right. You didn't let me finish my point. I don't want anyone to come at me. So this is the only reason I'm re-interjecting here. You've seen all of The Office, right?
Yeah, multiple times, of course.
Right, of course. You know the episode where Michael, they're having like an auction or whatever it is in the warehouse, and Michael's like, "I have 2 tickets to go see the boss, Bruce," and then he like fakes that he lost them or whatever.
Right.
So there's a point when like everyone's all jazzed up for this part of the auction, and he runs up on stage, and that's when the song I mentioned, "The Heart of Rock and Roll," plays. But that song isn't even by Bruce Springsteen. That song is by Huey Lewis and the News. So I always thought that moment was so weird because like you would think that to celebrate Bruce Springsteen tickets that there would have been a Bruce Springsteen song. I don't know if there was like a rights issue for The Office, but
Probably.
I thought that
I
was
like a good fake out or like good like mistaken song, like a song that everyone thinks one person sings one band sings, but it isn't actually that band who sings it, like a Mandela effect kind of thing. I like that.
When we get to Christmas time, remind me to talk to you about the song Last Christmas. Have a rather embarrassing story there. But
Okay.
The thing I don't get before we move on, oysters. I don't like hate them. I just like people are like, these are so good. I could eat.
Yeah,
50
what am
oysters.
I missing?
Like it's like okay. I mean, cool.
This
whatever.
wet, mushy, like flavorless.
Right. I don't think that like people be like, oh, you mean the snot? Like I don't think lowly of oysters. I just don't get it. I like this. This is maybe a future NFC East mixtape. Is like things we don't get. I have a very quick football one, and then we'll move on. I think that this phenomenon that you just described can exist with football players. Like, and you can acknowledge that like they're great players and they're Hall of Famers, but like you just didn't get it, like, when you were watching them. And for me, one of them is Darrelle Revis. Like, I fully acknowledge Hall of Famer, amazing player, et cetera, et cetera. Like, obviously the statistics and data is there to support that claim. I just never like felt that. Like, and I never thought like, oh, he's trash or anything. I just never felt it the same way as other people.
What is funny for like a really good cornerback or a position like that where they're better if they're not actually involved. It's not like someone who's making plays all the time as much as it's just like they're not even throwing his way. Everyone used to say that about Nomney, and maybe that used to be true, but it certainly wasn't true when they actually started throwing to him when he came on the Eagles. But yeah, I don't agree with you, but I understand why you would say that and be as wrong as you are.
Okay, so before we get to the most overrated players in the NFC East, you touched on it, Brandon. This is going to be old news for the listeners and the viewers by the time this airs, but we have to get your thoughts documented on the mixtape. I'm sure you'll touch on it on BGN Radio. We are recording this Thursday, June 16th. And like an hour before we started recording, the Philadelphia Eagles unveiled a new logo, but only the block lettering logo. So this isn't used as often as like the eagle itself.
Well, technically, RJ, it's not even like I got the PR release this morning, and they're very precise to be like, it's not a new logo, it's a new word mark. Word mark is the term they keep using, but yeah.
Okay, so the new word mark for the Eagles, the podcast audience has already seen it, I'm sure, wherever they saw it, but the YouTube audience, boom, over our faces. So you can't see us right now. Look, I'll be honest with you, Brandon. The old one, like, I hate the Eagles, but the old one is super cool. Like, the old one is like stout and, loud and wide, and like I love the lines on the side. Like, it looks like wings on, kind of like the BGN logo actually. I don't know if that's how it was inspired, but the new one is super lame and boring. Like, it's dumb. It looks very, 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 and I say this understanding of what it is. It looks very much like the new Commanders logo. I'm sorry, or new Commanders word mark. Sorry.
Some people have compared it to what the Lions have too, and I can kind of see that a little bit. I'm not mad about it. I just didn't get why this happened. No one at all was like, we need a new word mark. Like, there's so many things that people have been clamoring for, and to the Eagles' credit, they've done it in terms of they're going to bring Kelly Green back, not this season, but next year in 2023. They're going to make a black helmet. Like, they've responded to some cries for changes, but no one was saying we need a new word mark. And I agree. And someone, a good friend of the podcast, I don't think he listens, but once upon a time, he used to do the Liberty Ballers podcast here on the SB Nation NFL, or not NFL, SB Nation podcast feed as a whole, Fox Media Podcast Network. RJ, he tweeted out a picture of row homes in Philadelphia, kind of like, older ones that have been here for a long time, with the old Philadelphia Eagles word mark. Not even this one that you saw on the screen.
The old
but like
Kelly Green.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is really the best one, if we're being honest. And had that logo over that, while he had like this big modern, like gentrified building next to it. And that's like he put the new Eagles logo over that. And I think that sums it up best. Like, it's too gentrified. It's too like, this is modern and cool. And it's just, I think they tried too hard. No one was asking for it. I don't like it. It doesn't fit It doesn't seem Eagles to me.
It's very strange. Yeah, the Eagles like brand is kind of like sharp, and this is like really soft and round and uncomfortable. So
It looks like a fan mock-up. Really, it doesn't look like professionally done by the team.
It looks like people made the joke about. I know you're keeping super tabs on the Live Golf Series, but when they announced their team names, people were like, "These sound like team names when you create a team in Madden." This doesn't. I wouldn't make that joke here, but this looks like when you open like clip art and you have like 8 fonts that you can use. Like it looks like one of the fonts.
It looks like if they proposed a bunch of ideas on a sheet, like this would be one of the ones that everyone's like, no, definitely not that one. But like, okay, let's look at the other ones here. But they actually picked the one that no one liked.
Non NFC East thing, but the Eagles will play them in 2022. You mentioned black helmets. Just like while we're on the subject, the Saints did unveil black helmets today, the day that we're recording this. I think they're stupid. I'm fully like on that. No, I don't. Not a fan.
It looked too busy to me. I saw it really quick. I want to take a look at it again.
It's dumb,
like...
dude. And the stripe is dumb. Like I think I know the Eagles helmet doesn't have a stripe, so you could be like, oh, the helmets without stripes are the best ones. But like the best stripes in the NFL, like on helmets, are the ones that have the white stripe with a color on the sides bordering it. Like I know you won't agree with the Cowboys, but like the Niners have the same thing. The Saints, the Packers, those are the best helmets when you have like a big broad white stripe with color on the side. And the Saints have that, and I don't know why they would veer off of that. It's stupid.
Well, I think less is more. I don't think they need the stripe thing that they added with like all the fleur-de-lis symbols on there. I think if they just did straight up black helmet with the their regular logo, I think that would have been fine.
But do you know when they're wearing this? Because that makes it worse to me.
What, against like the Falcons or something?
No. That I don't care about. No, I'm saying like with what uniform.
Yeah, I'm seeing it here in their white jersey. I guess
it's the Color Rush jersey.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I know.
Don't they have a black
the one
jersey?
where,
Right?
I know that's the one where the gold helmet looks the best is with the Color Rush jersey. So I don't know. Bad move from the Saints. It will be in the past for you listeners, but Brandon and I did talk about this subject on last week's episode of The Look Ahead on the SB Nation NFL show. That technically hasn't happened on a current timeline, though.
Exciting. I can't wait to talk to you, RJ, on the SB Nation
you mean
NFL
you
show.
enjoyed the conversation that we had.
I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow when we actually record it on Friday.
Okay, we've dilly-dallied for long enough. Most overrated players in the NFC East. I do think this will be quicker than underrated, which is why I kind of stalled. So we have to start with maybe the most overrated team in the history of the world, the Dallas Cowboys. Are you ready for this, Brandon?
Yeah.
Offensive overrated players. Again, I got some tweets about this subject. I think you can be overrated without being good, or overrated without being bad, the same way that you can be underrated without being good. That was my argument for Zeke Elliott last week. Like, I think that the criticism has gone so far that it's like he's not he's not super slow, he's not super terrible, he's just, a little bit, so in that sense, he's underrated. I think that the answer is Zeke, though. I really do think that he is both. Like, I think that's a really difficult thing to achieve, but somehow he has. Because I don't think that anyone, is overrating CeeDee Lamb. I really don't. Like, I think that CeeDee's, career is just like, well, we'll see. Like, he has, I really do think there's that is the measured patience and, optimism is there, but nobody is, declaring it the way they have in the past, at least the way they did in the past with CeeDee specifically. I think Dak is properly rated. I think that most people agree he's a top 10 quarterback, wherever you want to put him there, whether you think he's, 7, 8, 9, 10, if you want to go as high as 6'5", whatever, people agree he's in the top 10. I mean, I don't know that anyone else is I think even Tyron Smith, I think people he's unique in that he's super talented, but he's just never available. So does that factor into being overrated? So I think the answer is Zeke, because there are some people who think he's the best running back in the NFL, which I think is silly.
Yeah, it's all about perspective in terms of overrating, underrating. I have Zeke here. Part of it's just I don't really know who else to pick, kind of like you were just talking about. Who are the other strong candidates? I would say Tony Pollard might be reaching so underrated, he's overrated territory. I had him as my most underrated last week, but I feel like so many people are coming around to it.
Wow, so we have underrated. Both Cowboys running backs as eligible for this. That's really interesting.
So I kind of, because I think the hype is a little too much, and there might be a reason he isn't playing as much as he is. You kind of have to wonder about that.
Your Trey Lance theory, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, there's also times where teams make dumb decisions and don't play players enough. So, but it's something to consider. I put that the Cowboys might be overrating Terrence Steele in terms of their confidence of moving on from La'el Collins and moving forward with him. Might be overrating Tyler Biadasz in terms of not drafting Tyler Linderbaum. I've said this before to you, I can't name a single Dalton Schultz highlight from last year off the top of my head. And I watched a decent amount of the Cowboys, and maybe I just somehow missed his plays, but and also he was holding out, and I kind of wonder how big of a contract he's going to get. Well, I mean, he did attempt mandatory minicamp, obviously, but he was out from OTAs.
Weird as hell. Well, he wasn't even out all of OTAs. That's what was weird about it. He showed up for like most of them, and then like 2/3 in was like, oh, I'm gonna skip the voluntary stuff. Like even though I already signed the tag, like it's a very strange situation.
I feel like Gallup might be a little less important to the Cowboys than because they were kind of fine without him last year, and obviously they had Cooper, and now they don't. He's important to them, but they signed him to the extension, and maybe he's being a little bit overrated coming off this injury. He's not going to be the same player. I don't know. There isn't like a great answer, but I think you can talk about different things.
I think the answers that you gave along the offensive line and Tyler Biadasz and Terrence Steele, I would give if I was saying who are the Cowboys overrating. Like I think that they themselves like are really
that's what I wrote down.
Well, I know. So like it to your point, it does depend on like perception, and like we differed a little bit on that last week. Like mine is like how does like the world view them. Like I don't think anybody I don't think you're sitting here like, man, the Cowboys really got one in Terrence Steele. I mean, I think he's like kind of emblematic of their offensive line as a whole. Like if he's awesome, great. Like they were right and they can rub it in all of our faces. But if they're wrong, like it will be a disaster. And like I did a hit on the radio in Dallas on 105 The Fan on Wednesday night, so a week ago for people. And I said like we are inevitably going to reach like it's going to be like week 6. And La'el Collins is going to be like PFF's top graded tackle from that week, and like Terrence Steele is going to have given up like 2 important sacks in that game for the Cowboys. So interesting, lots of answers all over the place. What about most overrated Cowboy on defense? I have the answer that is correct, but I'll let you be wrong first.
And it's Trayvon Diggs, who is has been incredibly overrated just from a standpoint of nationally. I mean, 11 picks last year. He's just naturally due for a steep regression. Also, I mean, to his credit, he took advantage of this, but 8 of his 11 picks last year, let me read you those. Sam Darnold twice, Danielle Jones once, rookie Mac Jones once, Matt Ryan once, Taysom Hill once, Mike Glennon once, Taylor Heineke once. So 8 of his 11 picks didn't come against the best quarterbacks. That doesn't mean they don't count. Not all the quarterbacks are taking advantage of those bad quarterbacks like that. And I know the Cowboys schedule isn't necessarily like, it's chock full of great quarterbacks this year, but still, I think it's been well documented that for as much as he makes plays, he gives up a lot of plays too. That was apparent, and you live with that to some extent because I think in general you want a quarterback who's going to make plays and to offset because they're going to give up play. Every quarterback's going to give up plays pretty much at some point. So if you're making the big plays, that has a lot of value. But I think he's going to take a big step back this year, and therefore is overrated from where he was last year.
So I understand why you would go in this direction. I think if an average, like if an NFL show, like if the SB Nation NFL show, people should go subscribe and leave a rating and write a review, did a ranking of overrated players in the NFL, I think Trayvon Diggs would be like in that mix, right? Like I think he's like really, really well known, and a lot of people generally agree that he's overrated. But I think like the path that he took to relevance kind of lends itself to being overrated, right? Like the great thing he did is so obviously going to regress. So like I think that the only people who are like quote unquote overrating him are not being reasonable. You know what I mean? I think that most people are like, yeah, he's not gonna have that many interceptions. But I do think that like the floor for him is still relatively high. Like, is he prime Darrelle Revis, who I obviously, regarded as an elite cornerback from day one? I don't think so. But I mean, I think he's going to be one of the like better corners in the NFL, right? Like I think like that path is totally foreseeable.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, but like that path is very, very like foreseeable, even if he doesn't have all the interceptions, right? Like that's, certainly within like the realm of possibility. He's a 3rd-year player. So like all the math of that like is computable or can yield a computation. Anyway, my answer, the correct answer, I think was actually your most underrated player for the Cowboys on defense. And it's Jaron Kearse. Because like to me, and again, this is why this is always a fun exercise. his overratedness will really plague the team. Like it's fine to like overrate Trayvon Diggs because like how can you not believe in him and trust in him and like see him as one of the like stars of your defense? Like it makes sense to do that again given his age and like his progression in the NFL. But Jaron Kearse was this like journeyman safety in the NFL before arriving with the Cowboys, and like we've seen that, right? Like we've seen players show like, and I think in Dallas, like do you remember LaRon Robinson? And when he had like 11 touchdowns,
yeah.
Like that,
he got the
went
big
to
contract from the Jags, yeah,
and then like disappeared. I'm not saying that's Jaron Kearse, and he didn't get like a big contract like that, but like that's to me like people are like, oh, boom, he's a superstar. Like it is still very possible that Trayvon Diggs is a superstar, even if he doesn't have 1,000 interceptions. I just don't think there's. I think that we've seen the best of Jaron Kearse as far as like aggregate performance is concerned, and I think that the Cowboys and a lot of fans have really, 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 really overrated that. And I think people end up talking out of both sides of their mouth when they do these sorts of things because so many Cowboys fans, Brandon, are like, man, Stephen Jones, all he wants to do is like find the journeyman and pay them low contracts, and they're like, but we have to bring back Jaron Kearse. It's like, well, that's what he did last year. Like, I mean, it's silly, but it hurts me to say, and I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, that's my answer.
Coming from a similar point of regression and whatnot, I'm looking up a stat for you because I picked DeMarcus Lawrence last year, and I think he's overrated as a pass rusher. Still a really good run defender. But
I mean, like depends how you like
live with it.
That. Like, he's a great defensive end. Like that's what you want. Like, is he gonna have 1 billion sacks? I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, and I wish he would, but you have Micah Parsons, so it's all good. I actually thought about naming Micah like for most overrated because like, but I mean it's fair I think in a weird way to like overrate him, but he is being regarded as like one of the best players in the NFL, but I think he is like it's a weird kind of line to toe.
All right, ready to move on.
Yeah, spoken like a true Nittany Lion fan. Okay, moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to start on offense or defense?
Start on offense. I want to hear your pick actually first.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll go first defense.
Okay. So I thought about 2 players here. Do you want to guess who they were? Like it came down to 2 players for me.
Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders.
No, neither one of them actually made my list.
You said Jason Kelce last year. I mean, how is that? I mean, he made all pro. He made all pro again.
This is relative to perception. That's what I'm.
How is he underrated or overrated as an all-pro player?
Because I think people are like he's a Hall of Famer and stuff. Like I just
he's a Hall of Famer.
He's a really good player, but like you can be really good without being a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer.
But my answer.
You don't think Jason Kelce's a Hall of Famer?
That's a different argument for a different day. That's a tease for a future episode of the NFC East Mixtape. But Devonta Smith is the most overrated player on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Terrible. This is such a bad answer.
What has he like? What like you said?
What was he supposed to do in the NFL's heaviest run offense? What was he supposed to do?
How can you think he's good at all? Like, how can you draw any sort of like, oh, he's amazing? Like, I don't think you can like
because when they actually did give him the ball, he did great, but they wouldn't freaking throw him the ball.
I'm not putting him on this level, and I say that in full seriousness. But you said you couldn't name a Dalton Schultz highlight from last season. The only Devonta Smith like highlight I can think of is the first touchdown catch, because it was in like Atlanta, and there was he caught the touch. Like that's the only.
Okay.
That's the only.
Patrick Surtain? Do you think he's a good quarterback?
I'm not here to say that I'm not gonna assess
him in the end zone.
Okay, cool. I mean, he's and like the only other like seminal Devonta Smith moment I can think of, and remind me here, it was in New York, the game the Eagles lost, by the way. And what did he have, like a kind of sideline catch that was like reviewed or challenged or whatever it was? Like, what was the situation there?
He had a bunch of sideline toe tapping catches throughout the season. I can't even remember them specifically because he had a bunch.
I just don't incredible. And I would say this about CeeDee Lamb too. Like, so I'm not like picking on Devonta Smith, but like,
I think you're thinking of a second Eagles game actually. Now that you say that, the Eagles won that one. That was in Philly.
Right. That was the finale. Right. No, not the finale, but the second one. But anyway, so my point is I'm putting CeeDee Lamb in this mix too. And like you could make an argument for CD, like, well, he didn't have Dak Prescott as rookie or whatever, blah, blah, the way you can argue about the run offense for Devonta. But like we have seen, we are in an era where like dudes show up in the NFL as rookie wide receivers and are not just productive, but are like superstars and like are immediately the best wide receivers in the NFL. Obviously, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are the two most recent examples. I think we both agree they're the best receivers in their class, which is the class that CD and Devontae are from. And so, like, I think he's overrated in that sense. Like, I think he gets treated like he's this, like, legit, bona fide, I'm not saying he's not, like, starting caliber, but, like, he's, watch out. Oh, who has the best wide receiver doing the NFL now? The Eagles. Like, A.J. Brown is the best wide receiver in the NFC East. He is. I don't know that the second, if I had to rank them, like, receivers in the NFC East, it's probably A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Devonta Smith.
I think Devonta might be better than A.J. Brown. I don't think it's hard to say right now that he's like just in terms of proven track record, but Jimmy Kempski and I, past spoiler alert, coming out next week, in the BGN radio podcast we just recorded earlier this morning. As we're recording this for over-unders, we talked about our belief that Devonta could be the best receiver this year. And I mean, dude, he broke the Eagles rookie receiver.
That means nothing. That's like saying I know this didn't happen, but like Justin Fields broke the Bears rookie passing record. Like that means nothing. Like they don't have a rich history of receivers.
I mean, okay, but he beat Deshaun Jackson, who was a pretty good player, and he did it on fewer targets. Like, he did it in a run the heaviest run offense in the league.
When I think of rookie Deshaun Jackson, you know what I think of? I don't think of like what was previously the best, rookie season in Eagles history. I think about dropping the ball at the goal line on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys.
Of course,
but so I mean, good. I don't feel like it's a big deal that he like if you set the NFL rookie record, okay, like now we're talking. That's way more impressive. But like the team one.
I'm really and feel this way.
Devonta Smith, most overrated player on the Eagles offense. Who's your answer?
I was between Miles
Sanders, Jalen Reagor,
and Jalen Hurts. I mean, obviously, no one's rated Jalen Reagor. It's tough. It's a tough pick. I don't think anyone's like overrating Eagles players super hard.
I think. Look, I gave my answer, but I think Jalen Hurts is getting a little overrated, dude. Like,
yes.
So there are players who have stands that are unique, and Jalen is one of them. Like, what was the thing floating around this week? Like the image comparison from last year to this year is like, oh, Jalen Hurts got jacked. Like, what does that mean? Like, that's so stupid.
Especially meaningless. For a quarterback. I don't think anyone's overrating Devonta Smith in terms too of like people being really excited for AJ Brown. Like, so it's not even like people are gassing up Devonta right now. The attention isn't even on him.
Do they listen to the NFC East Mixtape? Because I know somebody that is.
Yeah, so I mean, for the most part. So I think it's Hurts or Sanders. I think I have to go with Hurts really because Sanders. I don't know that people. I think people are kind of down on him a little bit after last year, when last year was kind of really supposed to be a breakout year for him, and he had some injury issues, and the fumbles have been an issue. He just hasn't really been able to break through like that, and he didn't really have the home run hitting runs that he had in the past two. He had a good like yards per carry. It was like 5 or 6 or something. It was like pretty high. But the volume wasn't there like it should have been, and he still hasn't really. There's more seasons of him not being a productive asset in the passing game than him being one, like he was in his rookie year. So, not great in that regard. I don't think people are super like high on him. I think Jalen Hurts, meanwhile, though, to your point, I've heard like every excuse in the book, like, oh, he's gonna be like Josh Allen, and just takes it. RJ cannot like. I should be given money for every time people want to tell me that last year it was really Jalen Hurts' true rookie year. It's like, no, it's not. Like, he played 4 games as a rookie in 2020. That counts. How does that not count? He played 4 games, and he played really even more than that because they were mixing him in at different points throughout the season. And I know that's not the same thing as being a full-time starter. But the point is, like, he played. He played more than that.
That excuse is coming for Trey Lance, by the way. Like,
yes.
So like the same thing is on the way. You're right. Sorry, not to interrupt. Keep on.
It's just, but also it's so dumb to me because it's not like, at least with Trey Lance, you could say that he played so little in college that he just doesn't even have like a lot of football experience. Like, he only had like something like 200, 300 attempts in college compared to like Trevor Lawrence that was like 3 times as less or whatever. Like, Jalen Hurts played a ton in college. He played a lot.
And he got benched.
Yes,
like it's crazy to think like, because like weird things happen in college football, but like he got benched. Not only got benched, he got benched in the most important moment, like of and he got benched not only in the most important moment possible, but for a quarterback who like nobody believes is functional at the NFL level. Like, it's crazy. Like,
so why is it so like and I think Hurts is better than Tua at this point. Not to say I think he's progressed, but not to say Hurts is worthless. But like this idea that like it's insane that you'd question him. Although I get to your point why there is there are stands for him is because he checks all the boxes off the field. Like he's everything.
He's really cool.
Our quarterback to be from like off the field and like intangibles, all those things, and which is why I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's likable, but I just don't think he's he's not a top 10 quarterback. He just isn't. And I think you're going to have to pay him like that at some point down the road. And I just don't think he's worth investing in. He's a win with quarterback. He's not a win because of quarterback.
I've said, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I've mentioned my Connected franchise on Madden. I hate that I have to support EA and buy Madden, but I love football. And I have a Connected franchise with my cousin. So I'm putting my cousin Jeremy on blast here. I am the Chicago Bears because of my dog, and he is the Cleveland Browns. But he loved Jalen Hurts at Alabama. So my cousin's a Cowboys fan, but Jalen Hurts is his quarterback because he thinks he's cool. Like that's like the vibe he projects. Like there's a lot of people that like him, and You're right. Like he's wearing like Phillies hats and Sixers stuff and blah. By the way, this is a whole different conversation. I've been meaning to tell you, I think it's super dumb that the 76ers go by the Sixers. Like that's a different name. Like it's not a nickname. It's literally a different name. Like it's a different.
It's a mouthful.
I know, but like to say Sixers is literally a different number. Like it's literally a different name.
Better.
So, but whatever. Yeah, super overrated. But like it's a natural overratedness. You know what I mean? Like I don't fault anybody for like taking the cheese, so to speak. The defensive side of the ball. What?
Another aspect to it too, before we move off of him, is fantasy football, because he's such a good fantasy football player that like people who aren't really necessarily paying attention to like the real games and everything are just seeing like all these fantasy points and be like, yeah, Jalen Hurts is great. Like, what are you talking about? So they're definitely players like that. By the way,
who else is like that in today's NFL? Like who's great fantasy player?
I think I have another one for Washington. So I don't want to get into that, but
okay,
last thing on Hurts, I want to review. He's 9-11 as a starter. Okay.
The list. Like, Are you going to ask me like who the most impressive quarterback he's beaten or whatever?
I will tell you the quarterbacks he has beaten in the 9 wins are Taysom Hill, Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Teddy Bridgewater, Trevor Siemian, Garrett Gilbert, Jake Fromm / Mike Glennon. I combine that into one, and Taylor Heineke. Those are the wins.
Okay. So what is more impressive? The list of quarterbacks that Jalen Hurts has beaten in the games he's won as the Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback, or the list of quarterbacks that Trayvon Diggs picked off in 2021? But what is of higher quality? I think it's Trayvon. Well, because Trayvon also picked off Tom Brady and Justin Herbert, like that.
Right?
He wins,
exactly.
By the way. So,
right.
Okay. Good for Trayvon Diggs. Okay, the defensive side of the ball, most overrated player on the Philadelphia Eagles, Brandon Lee, Gowton, go.
Josh Sweat. I cannot believe, like, I talked to this about Benjamin Solak, who we had on for our Jersey Number Analytics podcast, former BGNer, of course, who has long been a Josh Sweat guy. And I'm like, Ben, I have to take this opportunity, as I know you are a big Josh Sweat fan, to point out how absurd it was, like, that he made the Pro Bowl last year. It was as an alternate, but there were 12 NFC edge rushers who had more sacks than him last year. And, take this for what it's worth. Pro Football Focus graded him as like their 24th ranked edge rusher, like combining run defense and pass rush. And then just in pass rush, he was 42nd in their pass rushing productivity metric. And do you happen to have those grades open right now? Like no,
on a tab? Oh, well, if you did, I was going to ask you who the top 5 graded defensive players were as edge rushers in the NFL last year. Do you want to know?
No.
Oh, Myles Garrett, number 1. Max Crosby, number 2. Von Miller, number 3. Okay. Rashawn Gary was number 5. Number 4, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Okay. So, so I just did the thing with Jalen Hurts where I pointed out, the level of competition. Let me do that for you with Josh Sweat. So he led the Eagles in our career. He had a career high in sacks, 7.5. He's a good player. Is he like an amazing player? I think people people are overrating him because he was a 4th round pick, and everyone like, oh, he's such a steal because he fell because of injuries. And I think people continue to overrate him. Anyway, if I am going through his stats and parsing through, he had 0.5 sacks in games against playoff teams, which include the 49ers, Cowboys, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Raiders. And then if you include near playoff teams in there, like the Saints and Chargers, who like just missed out, half a sack in all of those games combined, whereas 6 of his sacks came in games against the Lions, the Jets, the Giants, and Washington. And in those Giants and Washington games, at least a couple of them, or one of them each, They were missing their starting right tackles.
And they lost one of those games. Like the Eagles did. Wow. Okay, that's a really good like exhibit A, B, C, why this player's over. That might be the best answer that we've had, honestly.
He's not a bad player, but he's just like
no, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like you can be overrated without being bad.
If you classify him as like a Pro Bowl defender, like you're just lying to like no, he's not. Like that's just like that. This doesn't mean it. It speaks to why the Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything.
Back in the day, before the Eagles had a stupid word mark, the Pro Bowl meant something. Like you could say like he was a Pro Bowler last season, and it meant like he was a really good player. Like a few weeks ago when Marion Barber tragically passed away, people talked about the year he made the Pro Bowl. Like that was indicative of like a quality season, at the time. You know what I mean? Like it just means nothing now.
So he was a Pro Bowler.
Sad day for what?
He was a Pro Bowler.
Oh, Mitchell Trubisky. I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah.
Okay. So my answer is kind of like Jalen Hurts in that I think there's like natural overratedness, like understandable overratedness. And it doesn't mean it's dumb or stupid or anything. It just means like this player's being overrated and we can kind of understand why. And I think there is a tendency from people to overrate players who are returning. Like Michael Gallup's kind of in that camp, right? Like he's got a torn ACL, but now it's like, oh, Michael Gallup was back, blah, blah. So in a similar vein, I think that Brandon Graham is overrated. Like I think he gets like hyped up as this like the like best version of himself that like Eagles fans have seen. And the likelihood of that happening, I know he barely played last year, is just so slim to none. So it's just like it's natural causation. Like he's going to be overrated by the like way life goes. But again, doesn't mean he's terrible or sucks or anything like that. He's just overrated. And that's where we're at in 2022.
I don't think anyone is expecting huge things from him, but I think it could be a case of we're expecting too much. And that's not to say like people think he's going to have an amazing season, but even just to be like him, like his normal him, because he's coming off this Achilles injury that caused him to miss most of last year. And he's like 33, 34 now. So I've long pointed out how he didn't really become a full-time starter until like 4 or 5 years into his career. So I think he has more tread on the tires than most players his age because he just didn't have a high snap count early in his career.
You mean more tread available, like less tread currently on the tires than most players his age.
Yeah. Well, wait. You want more tread though?
No, tread is like experience though. Like you're like so that's what I'm saying. Like he has less tread.
Yeah, but you want tread because then the tires are going to be smooth.
But again, the way this analogy works, you achieve tread by like life in the car, driving the car. You know what I'm saying? Right?
I don't know.
Hang on, I'm looking this up. This is like our
bearish bullish.
But yeah,
I was definitely right about. You want tread on the tires.
As you drive, the tread will wear down. Right. So I was wrong here, just like on bearish and bullish. Look at that. I'm not a car guy.
Neither am I. Anyway.
I think it's so weird how like F1 has become the most popular thing in the world. That's
no one actually likes. No one actually likes F1.
Yeah, it's just like a thing. Like it's like whatever.
Oh, I watched this documentary. It's my favorite thing now.
Yeah. I did want to bring while we're on the subject to this, but I guess before we take a break. You're a big tennis guy. It's almost Wimbledon season. I'm a big
Rafael Nadal
guy. Right. But so like, you love like tennis is awesome. But so I guess tennis.com, I'm not like a tennis content consumer, but I guess tennis.com is like a big thing. And their Twitter handle, I just saw this while we were talking, is @tennis. Like that's all it is, like @tennis. And they have almost 300,000 followers. So again, pretty big content creation happening here. But like, is there like an @football? Like that's or basketball or something? Like,
and while I do this, did you know there's a tennis player named Tennis, but it's spelled with a Y?
I did not know that.
Do you think
like TENNYS?
Yeah, Yep. Isn't that crazy? I feel like we don't talk about that enough. How insane would it be if there was like a football player named Football?
Well, Johnny Football. But
I mean, like his actual first name, like legally.
Right.
That'd be insane.
Interesting. Okay. Let's take a break and then we'll wrap up with the Commanders and the Giants, although we're not going anywhere for the YouTube audience. Brandon, not Graham, Gowton. What is your favorite score in a tennis
Brandon
match?
Lee Graham. Score.
Yeah, like what score? What's a great? You want it to be like 15-all, like 40 love? Like what's your favorite score in a tennis match?
I am looking up @football, by the way, and it is an account that tweets, but it's like soccer stuff, obviously. So there you go. It's not like verified or anything, but they have 71.
I think the closest thing, and I mean I love soccer, is there's an account and a site the site is goal.com. So their Twitter account is goal.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of close here, but
I would say that my favorite score is anyone where Rafael Nadal is winning. By the way, I feel like you would be a Federer guy. I guess you're not like super big into tennis, but I feel like you'd be a Federer guy, and that makes
I am not super big, but I will like proclaim allegiance now for the purposes of our content of the mixtape. Like I don't know anything about like Roger Federer's like personal history. I don't know if there's like something there. So like maybe very clear, like I'm only doing this to be a foil. Roger Federer is my favorite tennis player of all time. There we go. Boom. Here we go.
I mean, I'm glad you picked him now, especially too when he's like all broken down and doesn't really
look. But again, like if there's some like controversy swirling around Roger Federer, like
no, I don't think so.
Okay, let me be. I'm just saying I'm unaware of it. So like I don't want someone to be like whatever. But okay,
he's like that's one of the things people like about him is he's very much not like in that realm.
I do think I follow him on Instagram. So
he's a family man. He's a couple kids. Not to say that people, with families can't be bad, but I'm just saying like he's known for being like a good family man, like pretty clean reputation.
That's my guy. That's my guy. I do follow him on Instagram. Look at that.
Nadal, the most Grand Slams and titles in men's tennis with 22.
That's my guy. Oh no, wait, that's
Federer second with 20, and Djokovic second with 20.
So if you're the NFC East Mixtapes Nadal and I'm the NFC East Mixtapes Federer, we need a Djokovic. So we need that. So recommendations. Maybe the listener is the because he's like the up and comer. So he's coming for all of our titles, but we'll stand for him. Anyway, okay, most overrated player on the Washington Commanders. Let's flip it up and go defense first.
Oh wow. I'm between two here, so maybe weigh in if you're also between two, or you can weigh in. Thought about William Jackson. He was my most underrated last year. Thought he was a really good signing for Washington, but he had a 100.4 passer rating when targeted last year. He's the second biggest cap hit on their team, and he's the NFL's top 14, like the 14th highest paid cornerback annually. So I think he's overrated from that standpoint. The other one I picked here, which I might like more, was Duron Payne. Because
that's my answer.
Okay, because I feel like he's skated by a little bit because like, oh wow, Washington defensive line so good, Alabama guys, that no one is actually like, from a national perspective at least, like really focused in on him, because it's like, oh yeah, because they name all the good players they have, like Chase Young and Jonathan Allen, who are actually both like really good, but then they like lump Duron Payne in there, but he's not on that level. And I think when you talk about him being like the 13 or 14 overall pick he was in 2018, and this is a guy who has 14 and a half sacks and 22 tackles for loss in 64 games over those 4 years. And if you do that per season, so he has 3.6 sacks this season and 5.5 tackles per loss this season. Again, a guy who was like just outside of being a top 10 pick. And you look at some of these players that Washington passed on, RJ, like right after that, and he was 13, by the way. Marcus Davenport, the Saints traded up for him. Colton Miller, it's been, I guess, fine. But then you have a run of 5 Pro Bowl players here in Tremaine Edmonds, Derwin James, Jairi Alexander, Leighton Vander Esch, and Frank Ragnow. So, I would say him. And it's also relevant because it seems like they don't really want to pay Duron Payne.
I think you're right. I think that happens a lot. I think that happened, for example, with the Cowboys receivers last year, where like if there's like a trio of something, people name like the other two, and then they're like they treat the third one as like being on that same level just because they're like a part of the trio. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of happening as an example with AFC West quarterbacks, right? Like they have the best 4 quarterbacks in the whatever. Like what? Like no. Like just because just because the average is higher because of the top doesn't mean like they're all really really good. So I think that's fair. I think it's difficult to say anybody else is overrated. I think everybody else on their defense is properly rated. Like I think William Jackson is properly rated. I think the Cameron Curl stuff has like chilled a little bit to where he's properly rated. A different Sweat, Montez Sweat, is I think properly rated. Had a bad run, we'll say, second half of last season, to say the least. The target of a lot of BGN articles, we'll just say about Montez Sweat. I think that Chase Young and Jonathan Allen are properly rated. I mean, I think that it's weird, but like that's what a down season for like a group like this will do, is it'll like humble the perception about a lot of people. So that's a good pick. Duron Payne, congratulations. You won. Are you ready for the most overrated offensive Washington Commander?
Yeah, who is it?
I think it used to be Brandon Scherf. I think it used to be, because I think when you're like somewhat good, on a really bad team, you become overrated, right? Like people are like, oh, so and so is like trapped by the
Joe
team or
Thomas.
whatever. Right. Although Joe Thomas was awesome, but
He was great, but I think people a little maybe thought, you know what I mean? It's just the
right.
effect of what you're saying.
I know you said before that Terry McLaurin has like now kind of become overrated because all the like underrated chatter has like swirled around him. I'm not gonna go there. I think if we're playing the game the way you said some Cowboys and I said I think the team is overrating them. I think the team's answer here is without question Curtis Samuel. I mean, like, whatever. I think Carson Wentz is underrated. I made that point last week, but so I don't think he's overrated. I think the answer, and it kind of sounds like I might be stepping on your toes based on your fantasy point earlier, but it's Antonio Gibson. Like, I think people really think he's like really good. I think he's fine. But I'm not like floored by Antonio Gibson is my point.
Antonio Gibson to me is like the definitive right answer to this question because again, like what you were just saying, you look at his volume stats and they went up last year, and I think fantasy people kind of recognize that and be like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. And people liked him too going into that draft. Like people really liked him a lot, I remember. So I think that's part of the equation here. But he was 29th in DVOA's rankings for running back last year. I remember he was under 4 yards per carry for a while there. I remember him like because they'd be playing, the Washington would be playing the Eagles, and I'd be looking up his numbers, and he was like at 3.8 for a while. He finished the season at 4.0. How about this, RJ? Here's a good stat for you. Here's something, like I feel like one of the goals of doing a podcast or article, and you don't do it for everyone, but in general is like to teach people something they don't know or tell some people something. Do you know, and obviously you do because I'm kind of hinting at who it is here, the player in the NFL last season with the most fumbles who wasn't a quarterback, the most fumbles of any non-quarterback last year?
Running back Danielle Jones.
No, it was Antonio Gibson with 6. So I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough too. I don't, from the outside, at least from the national perspective, I think some guys get labeled as like fumble guys, and I haven't seen him really be pegged as that. Maybe I'm missing out, but I think it's Antonio Gibson. I think that's the correct answer.
On the subject of like overratedness, I think you can make an argument, right, that Zeke Elliott is not the best running back on his team, right? But that's a different, like, that's a very like specific sort of argument to have. I think that it's arguable that Antonio Gibson isn't even the best running back on this team, right? Like, isn't J.D. McKissic better than him in certain ways? I mean, and like I think like especially from a fantasy perspective, I think a lot of people were pumped when J.D. McKissic was leaving, to go to Buffalo. I have no idea why you would bail on the Bills, by the way, to return to the Commanders, but unless you just love living there, but whatever. But like J.D. McKissic is just as productive as he's, and like some of that is a product of like what's around them. So like I think Antonio Gibson deserves some leeway there. But like their offense is never like incidentally, Ron Rivera compared Antonio Gibson to Christian McCaffrey last year. Remember, like, God, I'm so over Ron Rivera talking to like, oh yeah, he's going to be just like Christian McCaffrey. We're going to use him in the run, in the pass, whatever. Those results weren't there. But when Christian McCaffrey's gone, like running backs don't matter, blah, blah, blah. But when he's gone, like their offense really suffers, right? Like they really, really miss Christian McCaffrey clearly. Like does the Washington offense like really miss Antonio Gibson, or do they like suffice just fine with J.D. McKissic?
Yeah, I think Gibson's probably a more talented runner than McKissic is, has the potential to be more effective there. And I don't know if McKissic can handle a volume workload, but he's really valuable as a pass catcher. Again, we talked about he was like their second leading receiver last year behind McLaurin. So yeah, I think it's him.
We'll stick with defense first here as we wrap up, but the New York starting to get kind of relevant at football again, Giants. My answer on defense, Brandon, is I think the only answer. And I like this is a very unique case here because I don't think anyone is overrated. So I think like it's just who's the only person who gets like some outside credit and like that they become the most overrated player by proxy. So it's Leonard Williams. I think he's the most overrated New York Giant defender.
I disagree. I think he has been.
I think you're going to say it's Kayvon Thibodeau already.
It is Kayvon Thibodeau. People are going to tell you he's like, oh, he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. And he's probably the betting favorite, I'm guessing, for that, or obviously one of them. And I don't think he will be. And especially because I think to do that as a rookie, you're going to have to post big sack numbers. And did he really ever do that at Oregon? Doesn't mean he can't do it in the NFL, but he didn't. So I don't know why you're assuming that he's just going to do that. I think he's going to be a better run defender than a pass rusher. I think those red flags that I've brought up a billion times about him, there was some legitimacy to those in terms of his character and everything, and football character and desire and drive. And I've seen some of that stuff be poo-pooed over not even just him with other players. And I've seen it come back to bite the Eagles in some big ways. in the past, so I don't underrate that kind of thing, and I don't just buy into it being complete BS. So I think it's Thibodeau. Again, that's not going to say he sucks, but I don't think
You're
he's
picking on him. Like he is going to have like a game-winning sack on Jalen Hurts, or like he's going to have like a game-winning forced fumble on Devonta Smith. Like you realize the bear you're poking, right? Like this is going to happen. It will be incredible for us.
I think I might be calling my shot here, and I think he might be like my Justin Fields this year, like player who like, oh my god, how did they let him fall? He's so good, and then like he's just
he didn't fall. He fell to 5. I mean, to be
people thought he could be number 1.
Okay, let's play a bet game right now. What is of larger volume in 2022? Kayvon Thibodeau sacks or
where were you going with this? Another defensive player?
No. I'm thinking of like something that's just difficult, like because I want to challenge you. Kayvon Thibodeau sacks or games where AJ Brown and Devonta Smith both have touchdowns. Can be any kind of touchdown, to be clear, but both and to be clear, I will count like a throw from one to the other as a score for both.
Okay.
So so if Devontae or AJ throws to the other, that counts.
Which it would. Yeah, that would be
right. It'd be a touchdown for each. Obviously, it'd be like the same play, but like so what is
the
so Kayvon Thibodeau sacks or games where both Devontae and AJ Brown score.
What if they both have what if they do rushing touchdown count too?
Yeah, any kind of score for either AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, but only sacks for Kayvon Thibodeau.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take AJ Devonta.
Wow.
Thibodeau was never like the big like sack producer. He wasn't.
Wow.
Oregon was 9. He had 7 last year.
All right. Okay. My pick for most overrated New York Giants offensive player is somebody who has never caught a touchdown in the NFL, or for the New York Giants for that matter. Kadarius Toney, because like he's the only one who like people still give like some shred of like optimism. And I'm not saying like he sucks or like people. What?
I think that's a fantasy thing, like fantasy football.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like people are like, oh, well, the Giants could trade him. Like, look for what? Like, who believes at this point? Like, who? Like, yeah, like he had a really cool, like, somewhat interesting, like 3-week stretch last year, but that's it. Like, I can't believe that you actually thought that he might be better than Devonta Smith at one point in time in the history of the NFC East Mixtape. So that's just an embarrassing L that you have to wear. I thought about going Kenny Golladay, but again, I think like everyone's punted on that. So. But Kadarius Toney, I don't think anyone is overrating Saquon Barkley. Like that's why like I don't think that answer is eligible at this point.
Well, I feel like because I'm looking at BigView.com right now, and there's a headline, RJ, that literally says, quotes verbatim, Giants RB Saquon Barkley out to prove he's still an elite player.
Just because he's annoying doesn't mean he's overrated though. Like, he's
like, no, he didn't say that. But I mean, like, well, he was talking about it, I guess, still. But like, is that even a story? Like, why are we acting like Saquon ever was like an elite player? Like, I still think he's living off his draft status as the number 2 overall pick.
He's living off his draft stat. He's ready for this. He is the offensive version in the NFL of Deviant Clowney. Like, how people love to throw out that like Clowney's never had a season with double-digit sacks, things like that. Like, he's somebody living off his draft status and his like insane college career. Now, granted, Saquon actually had like a legitimate college career. Clowney had like the moment that like really took everybody by storm. Not that his like career sucked or anything, but like he's that player. That's who he is.
I mean, Saquon had his best year in his rookie year. He had 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, 721 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. But again, that was 2018. That's forever ago in NFL years and forever ago in running back years. Like, he's still an elite player. I still think the Giants are overrating him. They should have traded him by now. They should trade him. Mm-hmm. I mean, they probably can't because of his contract, but still, I mean, they should really be trying hard to find a way to do that if they can. So I still think it's him. And there's really no other great pick for the Giants offense because no one's rating the Giants players. So it's kind of
I don't think there's a great answer for coaches or coordinators. I don't think any coach is overrated. Like maybe Ron Rivera would be my answer, but I mean, I don't think I think everyone thinks McCarthy sucks. I think everyone is still like out on Nick Sirianni, and it's like not fair to put Brian Daboll in this exercise. Like, so I think Ron Rivera would be the coach that's most overrated.
Maybe Daboll's
he gets more credit for losing the Super Bowl than McCarthy does for winning it. By the way.
I think Dable could be. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I think Dable is being a little overrated from a standpoint, even though we're bullish on the Giants' outlook relatively. Like just the idea that like, oh, well, he fixed Josh Allen, so he can fix Daniel Jones. Like that's overrating
That's
him.
fair.
Like that.
I think Kellen Moore might be or Dan Quinn is the coordinator. Like people are like, he did it like 85 Bears, like blah, blah, blah. Like, and that's like, again, you can be overrated without sucking or like even being bad. You could still be good and be overrated. But like, I think people think like Dan Quinn is like the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. He might be, but like it's 1 year and we need to see a lot more before we can kind of like lay that out.
And like he could be in a really bad spot in terms of like he had head coaching interest hot after him this year.
I think he's waiting on Seattle, so he has like the inside edge,
right?
There, you know what I mean? So, right.
I would posit that there is a greater chance he gets fired after this season than he gets a head coaching job.
I disagree with that, but I mean, because he has Micah Parsons, like you know, like that can save a lot of people.
I think their defense is going to take a step back, and that's not going to look good for him. He's not going to get the same amount of buzz. I mean, maybe from Seattle specifically, but not elsewhere. I would pick. For GM, I would pick. Who would you pick?
I mean, I think it's Howie Roseman too. I think he's both. I think he's overrated and underrated because nobody else really qualifies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a unique situation.
I think it's whoever you want to say, Jerry Jones or whatever.
Right, that's fair.
I think it's them because I think they get credit for drafting well, especially coming off of like Micah.
When like accidents happen, like Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn were wiped off, and they just took Micah Parsons, right?
Right. And I think they have drafted well to some extent, and they get credit for that. But like they don't get ripped enough, probably nationally, for like some of the things that the Eagles have done well, some of the things that Howie Roseman has done well in terms of like making good pro personnel moves. And like what have the Cowboys done in that regard? I mean, okay, they got Jaron Kearse, but like you got rid of Amari Cooper, and you misread the market on that. Really, like given how
that's fair
trades one else, and you also like. You didn't retain your starting left guard, and then you cut your starting right tackle. Like, you know, everyone agrees the Cowboys did not have a really good offseason. And I think that, you know, there's some overrated play there for the top of whoever's at the top of the decision making.
I agree. This offseason specifically kind of like won that out for Jerry Jones or Will McClay or Stephen Jones or whoever you want to like say is like the face or the head of it, whatever. Okay. Who do you think is the most overrated whatever in the NFC East? Brandon is on Instagram and Twitter at Brandon Gowton. I am on Instagram and Twitter at RJ Ochoa. BLG, give us 2 random words before we say goodbye.
Taco ship.
See you next week.